Well, hey, everybody, welcome to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. We've got a really great opportunity today to talk to a student who has just passed the Florida bar exam, Nancy Ferraro. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
Hi, Jackson. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I imagine you're feeling pretty much on top of the world right
I am a little scary, but yeah, it's a
now.
whole new beginning. Very exciting.
Well, why don't you share with our audience a little bit of your story and how you got to be in a position to take the Florida bar, and let's sort of let people into this journey that you've been on for a while.
Well, Jackson, I practiced in New Jersey with my now ex-husband for 20 something years, raised children, and really had to change my life. And so one very cold day in January, I got in the car and drove from New Jersey to Florida with really not a big plan, except that I wanted to do anything but practice law.
Okay.
Over that time, I met and came to work with a boutique attorney here in Florida. And watching the way he practiced and the way he was with his clients really inspired me to want to practice. And I realized I wasn't done yet. So that's what inspired me to want to take the Florida bar because although my focus in New Jersey was to make a career, yes, to help people, but early in my career, it was about making money and supporting myself and trying to build a life. Now in my 50s, God knows what I was thinking to do this again, but my focus became a little different because I've always felt a responsibility to the greater community. And realizing over the past year working for this attorney that I couldn't open my mouth in my own right. I had to run into his office and have him stamp me on the forehead before I could speak anything, even though I knew the answers. And I feel an affinity toward the underserved communities. And yes, I am going to have to make a living and I'm going to practice in the areas of probate and estate planning because I have learned how to set up a department here and know how to run that. And that's fun and I love the work. But I believe that my real calling is to speak to perhaps the LGBTQ community. As you know, there's a big elderly population here, and there's a lot of abuse and nursing home violations. And I have a little stick in my craw about that. Evictions for non-payment or assisted living facilities. That's really in my craw. So the fact that I can be admitted to practice law is one step in that, and it's very gratifying that now I get to do that.
Yeah. One of the things that we talk about, Nancy, here at Celebration Bar Review is that our mission is to empower and bring people we think who have a voice into the bar that need to be heard. And in this day and age, in this time, I think that's even more important than when we started out. And so your story, coming from New Jersey, being a licensed attorney, coming to Florida, and then saying, all right, now how do I put the pieces back together? What do I do? Is really a redemption story in some regards. And it's an exciting one. But as you briefly mentioned, you got to be crazy, a little crazy, to want to take the bar exam as an adult. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that because I know there are a lot of people in our audience who are thinking, yeah, maybe I'm going to move somewhere. Maybe it's not necessarily Florida, but I'm going to move somewhere and I might have to take the bar again. And I'm licensed, and what's that going to be like? Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, I really can, and it hits home a lot for me because I lived it. When you're a licensed attorney, you take for granted that people listen to you a little more closely because you have the ESQ behind your name. And whether or not you plan to practice law or whatever you plan to do with it, I think that it opens doors for you. People take you a little more seriously, and that's really what it means for me.
Yeah.
I've always told my son, who gave me a bit of a fit studying in high school, if you want to be a street sweeper, that's great, but make that your choice. You close that door. Don't let the world close doors against you. So I strive to live what I preach, and if I choose to do pro bono work for the rest of my life, that'll be my choice. It's not the world closing the door against me. I'm opening the door.
Yeah. And so what was it like for you to come back to this study realm after having been away for so many years?
Well, it was a little crazy. As you know, Jackson, I did not pass the first time around. And so that was devastating. You go in with kind of an ego about it. I've been practicing law for so many years. Of course, this is going to be a walk in the park. Um, and I believe that part of it, I was a little bit in denial the first go round. And I think I needed to fail that first time, even though I did pass Florida. I needed that experience to show me really what I needed to do to listen and to listen to you. There were things that hit home with me the second go round that didn't really register the first time.
Yeah. For just again to give everybody the full picture here, you sat for the bar exam the first time in July 2016, and you passed the Florida part of the exam. And in Florida, for those of you that don't know, there's kind of an odd little rule that says you can pass the state portion or the multi-state, and if you pass one but not the other, you can bank your score. You can sort of put it away and then just sit for the remaining part of the exam within a certain period of time. And if you pass that, then you pass. And that's basically the path that you followed. You passed Florida first, and then this time in February of 2017, you passed the multi-state exam, correct?
Correct.
And that's kind of a weird experience. I mean, you've got part of it under your belt, and you're thinking, okay, well, all right, that's good. But now I got to go back and sit for this thing again. And during this point in time, you're working, you're relocated, there's a whole new life, and you're studying for the bar. What did that feel like to you?
It was almost a really positive experience. And I say almost because, it was a lot of work. But it was very empowering. I'm the type of person that gets a lot more done when I have a lot to do. And I think a lot of people are that way. When you have the whole day spread before you, it's hard to be disciplined. So I felt that I was in a very supportive environment. So my boss actually kicked me out of the office 6 weeks before the exam. And I don't think a lot of people get that luxury, although my paycheck was cut, which was fun. I did feel support from the whole community, friends, work situation. But the most important thing I learned is that my brain could only work so long every day. And the first go round, I was forcing myself to sit for 6 or 8 hours a day, when after 4, there was no information going in.
Okay.
So that was a leap of faith for me, because you learn how you work, how your brain operates. And I realized that after that 4-hour period, I wasn't getting anything done. And it was much more productive for me to go make dinner or take a walk or go to a movie than
absolutely.
to sit.
Yeah. You also discovered that you were more of an auditory learner than a visual learner. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. What hit home for me this time, Jackson, was the spaced repetition lecture that you gave. It really struck me because I connected with that. Realizing, going back to my law school experience and realizing that I'm an oral learner, and really got my lectures in law school on tape and would play them over and over. So I worked to my strength, and I think that helped me this time. And what I did was I concentrated on the lectures, and I played the lectures over and over, and that activated the material for me much better.
Good. And for those who don't know, what Nancy's talking about with spaced repetition simply means that you take a body of material, you listen to it or review it, then you wait a little bit of time and you go back and repeat it again and perhaps add some new material, do some questions, then you wait a period of time, go back, do it again, add some more questions. And that was part of the structure that was built into our course. So that was one part of what was going on, and the lectures are certainly part of what we offer. And for you, that was more important than the reading. But we had another tool that you took advantage of called the paraliminals. Can you tell people a little bit about paraliminals and how it worked for you?
The paraliminals are an interesting tool because you're getting messages from in each ear. You're getting a different message in each ear, and it does something I don't understand how, but it works. And you don't have to actually know how to fix a car in order to drive it. So I took that on faith. But what the paraliminals did for me was relax my brain enough so that everything that I've been working on during the day had a chance to settle. So I would play them at night. I'd get in bed and just put the earbuds in and just repeat it until I fell asleep.
Yeah.
And
that's a great way to do
Yeah, well, I believe it helped me because I was a little uptight about the whole situation.
Sure.
And when you're uptight, information won't go in. So I had to relax my brain, and the paraliminals, I think, really were a lifesaver.
Right. We've put together a group of 15 audio recordings in conjunction with Learning Strategies out of Minnesota. And these paraliminals are, as Nancy described, different voices in each ear. And essentially what it does is it gets your conscious brain confused enough that the conscious brain checks out for a while. And typically, a lot of people sleep. Did these put you to sleep? Did
Oh
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so you sleep. And while you're sleeping, your non-conscious is getting these messages designed to focus on specific problem areas like anxiety or being overwhelmed or just the intention to be a better student or have powerful thinking or whatever it might be. And the advantage of the paraliminal is that it's really working for you, as you say, without you having to do anything. So when you had finished the first part of the exam, the Florida part of the exam, I think it's safe to say you were generally more angry than anything, right?
Oh yeah, it's very safe to say that.
Okay. So you use the paraliminals in part to help dissipate that anger and channel it more productively, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And so as you're coming back to study, and we've got lots of people in our audience who have failed their exams wherever they're coming from, and they're feeling a lot of that anger, I suspect, that you felt as well. What would you say to people about how to manage that and make it work productively for you so that you can get through the next exam?
I think that anger can be a great motivator because it's a challenge to me. You tell me I can't do something, and you know darn well I'm going to prove you wrong. I think that most people who reach this point are achievers, and my biggest point of anger was that I'm not used to failure. In law school, you just don't.
Right.
People who've gotten to that point have achieved a certain level of success, and so you're not used to being told that you have failed something. I think this is probably the first time in any of our lives that we failed a test, and it's demeaning and it's heartbreaking, but it's also humbling, and you realize that you have to move your ego out of the way. It's not about what you know. It's not about how smart you are. It's about a system. It's a procedure for passing this particular test. And once you get your ego out of the way, things start to smooth out.
Yeah. And how did you approach the multi-state exam this time? What did you do anything differently studying for this part the second time?
What I did was, Jackson, was I took the schedule and I worked backwards. And I knew that I wanted to give myself at least a week from the finish point. And so I took that schedule, I put a date on the last page and worked back. And that's how I scheduled my time to study. And I knew after listening to your lecture that the space repetition was going to be important to me. And you'll notice I was on Facebook asking people for timestamps for certain subjects.
Yeah.
And whenever I had a question, I'd go to the written materials and I'd listen to that part of the lecture and I'd work it out. And half the time when I posted a question on Facebook, by the time I posted it, I figured out the answer. And it's all there. It's all there. It's all in the materials. And it was not a failure of information. It was the way I was reading the question. And so I learned to read very carefully, not to jump, and to trust my instincts. That was the biggest surprise for me.
Yeah,
That
yeah. Let's talk about that instinctual approach because that is a big thing. Rather than trying to grind your way through it, what happens when you become a little more instinctual, or what did that mean to you to be more instinctual?
it means knowing the answer, not knowing why. And after you finish fighting that, I go, oh my God, I don't know why I know this. And I would try to figure out why. And then I realized that it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter why. Trust the process, trust the process, trust the process. And yes, you have to stay in the zone. So I was very careful about the paraliminals. I was very careful about my study schedule. I was very careful about outside noise because, as you know, I had to stop watching the news, studying the Constitution. I just had to stop watching the news. So you have to insulate yourself. You have to protect yourself,
Yeah.
and you have to stay in that zone of I don't know why it's right, but I don't care.
Yeah, and that's really a hard thing to do, isn't it? When you're used to being in control and you're used to knowing, the approach that we teach is one where you trust that you've learned the material and that you actually have an intuitive or an instinctive or a gut reaction to it. Trust that rather than trying to hyperanalyze it. The hyperanalysts really sort of chase their tails with this exam, and it's too difficult a test anymore to be able to say, oh, that's obviously a wrong answer. There aren't a lot of obvious wrong answers anymore in the multi-state. So you take this more instinctive approach to the exam. What was it like going back to Tampa the second time to sit for the exam?
It was deja vu all over again. Uh, it was frightening, but it was empowering as well because I thought, now I'm coming to get you. Here I am. Watch out. I'm coming to get you. And I followed all of your advice. I dressed for business, and I came and I did my business, and in a dress and heels and pearls and the whole shebang. And I felt a little silly.
Kind of freaks people out, doesn't it?
It does. I felt a little silly at the beginning, but after a while, people were looking at me like, well, she must know something we don't know. And actually, I did know something. I know Jackson.
Well, that's very kind of you. Again, for those of you that don't know, I advise my students to dress for the bar exam like they're going to court, because I think it not only does it freak some people out, but it also just sort of sets the tone. It was like, yeah, I do know something, and I'm here to do business, and I'm serious about this. And you were very serious in your study and very serious in your approach. And why would that change on the day of the exam, right? So you sit for the multi-state day, and now you've got this 6 weeks of waiting. What was that like for you?
It was pretty horrible. I walked out feeling like I owned it. And then, as time goes by, you think, well, maybe I didn't pass, maybe I didn't, I either killed it or it killed me. And it's that 6 week time frame, I walked around saying to people I didn't care anymore, but it was just a facade. I really did care. That's a very challenging time because it's out of, I'm a control freak. I've raised children, raised a handicapped child, and that, as you know, is crazy. You have to be in control at every minute. I am a person who likes everything tied up with a bow, and the whole 6 weeks, I'm thinking it's a scantron. They'll know in 5 minutes. Why can't they just tell me? That's a very hard time, and you have to fight the urge to maybe even start studying again because you've convinced yourself that you failed.
Yeah.
But I did something really important, I think.
What was that?
I came out of the exam and I threw all my books away.
Okay.
Except for Florida, because they're really great little references, actually. But I thought, even if I have to take it again, I'm going to need new books anyway. But it was the symbolism of throwing away the books and the notes and making a step. It was a ritual for me.
I love that. So exam day comes, exam results day comes. Tell me about finding out your results. How did that happen, and what was it like?
Well, I went online and shaking, of course, and I had the website up, right? So I had the website up, and every 5 minutes I'd walk by and hit the refresh button. I said, God, how long are they going to make me wait? Finally, it came, and I almost didn't want to press the button. And the number above me had failed, and the number below me had failed. So it was, I called my significant other into the room. You have to double check this. It's like, I can't look, get a ruler. I said, go get out of my way. I passed. Just shut up. I passed. And it's exhilarating. At the same time, it's a little frightening because now what, right? So you have to go once more into the breach, forge ahead and make a plan. And at the same time as it's exhilarating and exciting, it's also a little scary because 51 years old, starting a new life and all that entails, reinventing my career and starting all over in a different place and in a new career, so to speak, because there's networking. You have to make all kinds of connections all over again. And so, it's a little scary.
And what did your family think about all this?
Oh, well, they're thrilled. My 22-year-old son is like, I knew you could do it. Although I didn't. You need your family around you to say, even when you lose faith in yourself, it's important to have that support system because they have faith in you. And sometimes, you need that. You just can't muster it and say, I can't do this. But come on, Mom, really? You've been through this.
Yeah. And, the people that are close to you, that love you and are around you, they are going through the exam as well. I mean, in every respect, except literally sitting in the room, they are feeling all of that. And so I think it's always great when you can share the result at that moment with somebody that's important in your life, and they get to see that moment and share it with you. So that had to be really special for you.
Well, what was really special is the fact that most of them, all of them, are still speaking to me.
Yeah, okay. That's a win.
That's definitely a win.
Yeah. Try and get through this process with the people that you care about still speaking to you. This is it's such a great story. And it's great because, well, on a lot of levels, but one of the ones that's really makes this, I think, so wonderful is that I see in your story sort of this recreation, regeneration of creating a new career and a new life, building on what you've done, but really with new opportunities, and at a time when we need more voices in the bar who I think are kindler and gentler members of the bar. And so this is the apex for us of the work that we do, is to see someone like you come into the state, into the bar, and to be present there. And I know you're going to make a huge difference in your community. And I'm excited to see where you go with all of that. You may think you're old, but trust me, from my perspective, I'd love to be back where you are. Those are prime years. Any advice that you would like to offer to people that are watching? I know that we have a huge audience of people that watch these videos, and I'm amazed at how often people come back to me and say, "Oh, I saw the interview with, and boy, it really touched me. It really made a difference for me." And I know that this interview is, in fact, going to touch a lot of people. It's going to resonate with a lot of folks. But if you could be talking to somebody and they were saying, I'm thinking about doing this, or I've done it and it's not gone as well as I wanted, what would you say to them now?
I want to tell you a little story, and the reason I want to tell you this is because it touched me and made me realize that maybe I am a little crazy, but it's never too late. Last year, I participated in a Lawyers for Literacy event, and we went to the equivalency high school, and there were people of all ages there, and I got the opportunity to meet, a man who was, I think he was in his 60s and learning English, but very bright. And he stood up from the back of the room and he said, "My name is," but I can't remember his name, "and I'm 60 years old. And do you think it's too late for me to go to law school?" And I was so touched by that. And I said, "Absolutely not." So the message is, it's not too late. I would be representing people in New Jersey, and I practice matrimonial law. So I get these clients, and they come in after 25 years of marriage, and I would think, why bother at this stage of the game? And then I got to this stage of the game, and I realized why. Life is not over. It's a whole new chapter, and it's very exciting. This is the chance to reinvent your life into what you want, what you feel your calling is, and really make a difference in the world. Because, in your 20s and 30s, you're really focused on raising a family, making money, supporting yourself. And it's passing the bar is critical to the rest of your life. And that's the way it feels anyway. This time around, it didn't feel like critical to the rest of my life, but in a way it was, because that empowerment that the ESG puts behind your name, as I said, it opens doors. And, at this point, if I want to close doors, let that be up to me.
Yeah. That's a great story. I mean, I love the opportunity to work with people who are reinventing themselves. And I think that the opportunities right now have never been greater for that. So I'm so excited that we could be part of your journey. We are very humbled and grateful that we could be there, and that your success is remarkable and wonderful. And I know it will inspire lots of other people. So I want to thank you for being honest and transparent and willing to come out here and tell your story. That's always a little unnerving for people, I know, but I think it will make a big difference for folks. Just want to wish you the very best, Nancy.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to checking back in with you periodically and seeing how you're doing and what good stuff is happening in your life. And just thanks for being with us today. And to all of you who've been in our audience, want to thank you for watching, and we'll look forward to the time when we get to do one of these interviews with you, right? So best wishes to everybody, and we'll say goodbye for now. Bye-bye.